Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. It's quite a weird book. I would recommend it for someone to read, but it's really long, as you can see, and it really doesn't need to be that long. That's one of the real problems with it. The best thing about it is, much like The Three Musketeers and some of Dumas' other novels, is it's really, really readable. It's got that thriller kind of element that other writers from the same time, like Arthur Conan Doyle and Robert Louis Stevenson, also kind of had that sort of the beginnings of what became the thriller. So this idea of having a story that's got a beginning, middle and end, that's got lots of intrigue, adventure, excitement, but also has like a solid core, has something intriguing and does tell you something as well. So this is, in my opinion, one of the ultimate revenge stories, the Count of Monte Cristo. Hugo's Les Miserables is another good example of the kind of revenge story, and both of them were published at kind of similar time. Both French authors. I think they both knew each other. They probably did. They both lived in Paris at the same time. I don't know which one I like more. I guess the Count of Monte Cristo is better. It's one of those things that whenever they remake it and whenever they make movies, and there's been like 5 or 6 different movies, it's always a good movie. It can never not be a good movie. And why? Because it's a good story. So the reason why it's so long is because it was published, well, first of all, it was published in magazine form, and whenever people in Victorian times used to publish anything in magazine form, if it was popular, they'd try and stretch it out and kind of keep that popularity going and going and going. Also in France, you got paid by the letter, by the word, rather than being paid for like a novel or a short story or whatever it was you're publishing. You were published by the word. So in France, it really was a thing that they tried to write as many words as possible in order to get paid more. Now obviously that sounds kind of a little bit negative, like they were like just padding out. And for the most part, authors just happen to write long novels anyway, which is definitely true of Victor Hugo. Both Notre Dame de Paris and Les Miserables are fantastic novels, and you don't really notice how incredibly long they are. But I do think Count of Monte Cristo suffers from that very thing. There's several points where you cannot believe how long the story is going on one element of the story, and there's this whole bit in the middle, and I don't really want to go into too many details because I do think that you should read it, but there's this whole bit in the middle and he really just goes off the plot onto this whole other thing. You go to, I think it's Spain, and there's like a execution, and the whole episode just takes so long to give the point that it's trying to give for the main story. It's just not worth it. And that's because that's sort of just at the halfway point. It becomes a struggle at that bit, and you just think, God, I've been reading this for ages, can I really carry on? But you definitely need to carry on. And the reason why is because the reason why it's such a great revenge story is the revenge is so well drawn out, and it's so justified, but also he gets his revenge. So there's like 4 guys who, the Count of Monte Cristo himself is this young man who gets accidentally embroiled in this political situation, and in order to save face, these 4 people who, some of them he considered his friends, turn on him and basically use him as a scapegoat, and they throw him in prison with no name and no record and basically expect him to die in there. But when he's in prison, he meets this old man who tells him about a treasure and teaches him all of these different skills that he can take on in life, and then he gives him the opportunity to escape the prison. So he escapes, finds the treasure, and then instead of using the treasure to give himself a good life, he uses the treasure to exact his revenge on these 4 men, and it takes him years. He creates the most elaborate forms of revenge you can ever think of, but he does it, and each time he gets his revenge on each guy, it is so satisfying to read. It is unbelievable. It's absolutely amazing. So for that, I would definitely recommend The Count of Monte Cristo.